After excelling at a club known then only as Wednesday, Fred Spiksley would go on to have a career in football far further reaching than any Gainsborough Trinity youth product could dream of, and a personal life that at times seemed like it belonged in a Hollywood script. This is the story of Fred Spiksley, the Wind. Born in Gainsborough in 1870 as the middle of three sons, Fred also had a younger sister who had sadly passed away at just 5 weeks old. Rather than follow his dad's career path as a boilermaker, Fred envisioned his own future as a jockey. His parents, however, concerned with the dangers posed by the sport, steered Fred in a different direction, and thus Spikesy spent his early years practicing on the local football fields. He often played with a football formed of rubber bands, a practice that would help him hone a dazzling dribbling ability. He signed with a local club, Gainsborough Trinity, shortly after leaving an apprenticeship at a local newspaper, a role he was fired from for taking an unauthorised half-day to go to the racecourse. Spiksley possessed both speed and a remarkable technique, both of which allowed Gainsborough to overlook any qualms about his small frame, standing at just 5'3". He impressed massively at Gainsborough Trinity, reaching 126 games for the club and scoring 131 goals in this time, a remarkable rate of over 1 goal a game. In 1891, his record with the club attracted interest and earned him a move to Sheffield Wednesday. Despite having been FA Cup runners-up the year before, Wednesday were non-league at the time, but a season after Spiksley's joining, they would be elected to join a new football league. His time with Wednesday would be hugely profitable for both parties. Spiksley had an array of skills at his disposal that would make him an effective attacker. One of these was his charm. As his teammate Ambrose Langley stated, Spiksley found it easy to make friends and disarm opposing defenders, starting conversations about how they were all making a living and how rough play benefited none of them. Upon receiving the ball, he would then skip their challenges with ease. Teammate Ambrose Langley wrote in 1925 that he'd never seen a man who could stop and start again so quickly, and while not the world's most powerful finisher, his skill made openings whereby powerful finishes were not necessary. In his words, Spiksley made Wednesday, and Wednesday without Spiksley was not very much, I can tell you. Also full of praise, teammate Billy Bassett called Spiksley the fastest man in football. He would go on to have a strong career, breaking records for both Wednesday and England. He scored a century of goals for the club, including the first ever goal at the Owlerton Stadium, now known as Hillsborough. He scored the fastest ever goal in an FA Cup final, timed at just 20 seconds, helping the Wednesday to their first ever FA Cup trophy, and in 02-03, his final day goal helped them win the First Division by a single point. His international career was sparse, but remarkable nonetheless. He netted a hat-trick on his international debut for England against Wales, and staggeringly followed this up in his second game with the first ever hat-trick by an Englishman against Scotland. He left Wednesday with the club reigning champions, as injuries and the physical toll of being targeted by defenders had caught up with him. He would have short-lived spells at Glossop North End, Leeds City, Southern United and Watford, but struggled to capture his former glory, and retired from the game due to an ongoing knee injury. This would not be the end of his time in football though, far from it. There was, however, a brief hiatus from the game. After being rejected for the job of Watford manager, Spiksley turned his head to acting. He joined the Fred Carno Company, a circus-style theatre group that was running a sketch show called The Football Match. It told the story of a cup tie between the Midnight Wanderers and the Middleton Pike Hands, and several ex-footballers, including Spiksley, demonstrated their football skills on stage. Also part of the show was a pale, puny and sullen-looking actor, in the words of the company owner, in Charlie Chaplin. Spiksley had known Chaplin close enough and early enough in his career to know him as Chas Chaplin. Spiksley would not follow Chas to Hollywood, but instead returned to football soon after. Though Spiksley had failed to find a coaching job in the UK, the knowledge and experience of English coaches was a sought-after commodity. He began his coaching career in Sweden with IFK Norrköping before taking IAK Stockholm to a Swedish league title in his only year with the club. He had a short-lived spell as manager of the Sweden national team, during which he oversaw big improvements for an inexperienced side. His next stop was in Germany. He spent a year managing MTV Munich 1879 before undergoing a 2-year spell as manager of FC Nuremberg. Here, once again, his career would take another drastic left turn. In August of 1914, Germany joined the Great War, entering conflict with both Russia and France in the space of 3 days. In the interest of national security and retaliation against similar measures imposed by other countries, Germany issued a decree to arrest foreign persons between the ages of 17 and 45, specifically those from perceived enemy nations. Both Fred Spiksley and his son Fred Jr. were subsequently detained and held in squalor in the Rue Laben detention camp. Spiksley would write later on, "We were bullied about by the wardens. One piece of black bread, almost uneatable, and water was the only food I had for 4 days." Luckily, Spiksley's wife, with the help of FC Nuremberg and an American consulate, were able to negotiate the release of the two of them. They'd be transported to a town in neutral Switzerland. However, he had to undergo examination before returning to England. To avoid being ruled fit to fight in the war, Spiksley made use of the recurring knee injury that had previously ended his playing career. He utilised several means to intentionally dislocate his knee prior to the examination, including repeatedly pouring boiling water over it. Being physically unable to run in the examination, he was ruled unfit and allowed to return home to England. With football postponed, Spiksley found work in Sheffield for the remainder of the war, working as a munitions inspector. After the war had come to an end, Spiksley returned to coaching, and once more, this endeavour took him overseas. They took him as far as Peru, working with the club Atletico Chalacao. He spent a year managing Real Club España in Spain, followed by a year in Mexico with Reformer AC, which not only returned a league title, but also made Spiksley one of the few men in history to have coached football in 3 continents. He briefly returned to the UK to take up a role as Fulham's assistant manager, before returning to FC Nuremberg for a second spell, which saw him also help them to a league title. His final spells in professional football were with Swiss club Lausanne and Spanish club FC Badalona. He did spend a few years after this working with the students of King Edward VII School in Sheffield, coaching for several seasons, including one where his team won all of their first 20 games of the season, helping themselves to 181 goals in the process. He also took part in a London Evening News series entitled How to Play Football, aiming to develop and encourage footballing talents amongst teenagers in London, for which Spiksley contributed most of the knowledge he had gained in his 40 years of sport. Following one remarriage and with his career in football coming to a close, Spiksley soon found himself with much more time to spend on the racecourse, one of his other enduring passions. When Spiksley was born in 1870, the average life expectancy for a man in his region had been just 39 years. In 1948, Spiksley had reached double this age when he went to Ladies' Day at Greenwood Racecourse. Sadly, whilst in attendance, he collapsed and died as a result of a heart attack. In his hand, he was holding an unclaimed winning betting slip. Fred Spiksley's remarkable career, surpassed only by his remarkable life as a whole, helped solidify his status as one of the first mavericks in the game of football. Further to this, however, he was undoubtedly one of the most talented players of his era, with legendary Arsenal manager Herbert Chapman remarking, "Fred Spiksley was, in my opinion, unsurpassed, both in poise and balance, and his ability to work the ball with both inside and outside his feet. He achieved everything he could have hoped for in his playing career, and as a manager, he brought knowledge and experience of the game to various countries across the world at a time when football was only just developing as a sport. Just who knows how far Fred Spiksley's influence and impact could be in the game as we know it today." Thank you for taking the time to watch this video on the AFC Finners channel. If you'd like to see more videos like this, please have a look at the channel down below and check out the hundreds of videos available. If you'd like to support the channel on Patreon, you can do so in the link below for as little as £1 a month. Please let me know what you thought of this video and what topic you'd like me to cover next. See you next time.